Well, me personally, my initial idea of what a man was obviously came from being around my father and being around the men in my family, and also like not social media, because social media wasn't really big back then, but the media in general. What's that song? I was taught that the true definition of a man was to never cry, work till you die. Got to provide. Like that was how that's how I seen what a man was. Like you basically live to work your hardest and make sure your family was good. Like no emotional output, no showing any sign of weakness, and also growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, it was always a tough guy mentality. So also being a part of it, man, being that provider for your family, you couldn't be scared to confront nobody. You couldn't, you had to be on go at all moments. And as I grew up, that ain't the way. Yeah, it really ain't.
Teach Me by Music Soul Child.
Yeah.
Teach me how to love. Anybody else?
I'm about to say Soul Music Child.
I think for me, in my personal life, it was a struggle for me, and I'm still on that journey of defining for myself what manhood is, because a lot of the men I saw growing up didn't identify the same way as me, or didn't know how to teach me, or had certain characteristics that I knew personally I just didn't want to embody. We talked about leadership and mentorship, who don't know how to mentor all types of black boys, don't know how to be leaders for the entire black community and the entire black male community. And so I think for myself, seeing that and learning, first of all, the way you perform your life and your existence as a black male does not have to be the same way I do. But if I am in a different lane than you, what does that individually look like for me? Because, we've talked about hypermasculinity and all that. We've dissected, especially what straight cisgender black male existence looks like for years, but what does it look like outside of that? For young feminine black boys, what is their life gonna look like? Who's mentoring them? For young trans black men, what is their life gonna look like? Who is helping them? And really challenging myself as an individual of how can I make sure I am not being the same type of black man that I saw growing up that I knew I didn't want to be like?
I think that's a weird I think I don't know. I'll put it like this. I don't know if hypermasculinity is the issue or if toxic masculine traits come from being hypermasculine, if that makes sense. Because I feel like at the basis, I think hypermasculinity is just a man really being a man. Well, I don't know if hypermasculinity is a bad thing in certain things, because certain those things that make you masculine, those leadership things, those ability just to kind of push forward, those masculine traits aren't always bad in certain situations. But I feel like it's when we forget or don't know how to apply those to certain parts and we just say the same throughout all, that's where becomes a problem. So my question to y'all is, what are some traits, some hypermasculine traits that you feel can be toxic as far as males go, black men?
The treatment of women can sometimes be a byproduct of toxic masculinity. The treatment of people that are less represented as those that can kind of come out in the cisgender heterosexual black male experience. I feel kind of in media, in our day-to-day, kind of you see black men kind of putting down on those people. Yeah. So that can kind of, and then when sometimes it's not you don't hear that, no, that's not okay. You shouldn't do that. That's not really normalized. And so people just think that's cool and they run wild with it, when the people that are being spoken about are real, with real feelings, valid feelings, and are valid humans in existence. And so you should be cognizant of that and treat them as you would want them to be treated. And I think we sometimes, cisgender men can kind of forget that. Cisgender heterosexual men can forget that. So I feel like that's toxic.
It becomes a bad thing when you start projecting those traits on the other people, and like demeaning their sense of what a man is. Like it's cool in the sense of that's what you think, that's what it is, but if it gets to the point where you start like telling other people you're not a man because you don't do X, Y, and Z, that's when it becomes a bad thing.
I feel that.
Good follow. Appreciate you.
And to kind of get off of that, but go like the other route, I would say me versus the world type of mentality. Like, think about it. Like, every time you cross paths with a black man you don't really know, a lot of y'all might not do it. I know I do it personally, and I try to control it, but I have this thing where we'll make like this weird, hateful eye contact as we pass each other, rather than saying like, hey, what's up, man? Oh, yeah, what's good? Or something like that. No, we just look at each other up and down, like, what the fuck is he looking at? Type shit. And it's really toxic.
I hear it.
That's so real.
I heard
it. It happens all the time. It happens all the time.
Yeah. And maybe we like walking on campus and it's like, oh, what's up? But like at night, what's good?
And then like you don't even like notice that it's happening. You just
why
do
you
that?
do that?
Like,
Size him up like, hey, if it got shaky. What's up?
So like where do you think that comes? Like why do we do that?
That's the whole kill.
Why do we do that?
I think it's a sense of pride. In my opinion, like I feel like I know like I say last year. It's been recent though. I was on my real hate shit. But last year, like I walk past and you'll look at me funny, and then I look back at you because like I'm not gonna let you bitch me. Yeah, like, that's how I was raised. Like, and that's a toxic thing too. The way I was raised to never back down, never. But like it might just be an innocent like. Bro, like my jacket or something. But I don't see it that way. I see it as, oh, you want to smoke with me or something like that. And it can lead into like that one small interaction can lead to a bunch of toxic things. Like that could then turn into, hey, I seen the way you looked at me. Like, what's good? A fight, shootings, murders.
Just based off of the fact that you
just looked at each other wrong.
It's like hyper aggression.
Yeah. I had to switch that up last year. I had a real problem with that last year. So.
It might be like an assertion of dominance kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I think.
Like try to like dominate any situation or put control in any situation you can. And all actuality, bro, I really think a lot of people just be minding their business, bro. Like if you walk, like really think about it, bro. Like out of all of us, do you walk out the crib wanting to fight somebody, bro?
Nah.
I'm pretty sure the next man don't walk out the crib.
You don't know though. And I'm not trying to get got. It's so bad, bro.
I feel that, bro.
They're trying to be
I feel you. Yeah, trust me. We there.
Like, who really walks up the crib and like, I'm trying to get you an altercation, bro.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you gotta be in a special type of mood to really be like, bro, like, that's what I'm on today. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like that goes both ways though, because a lot of people, so we talked about how if you're looking at somebody or you do acknowledge somebody, sometimes they will try and size you up. Whereas other times people, if you don't acknowledge them, they'll immediately take that to heart and have an issue with you. Yeah. Especially for me, I'm an introvert. If I walk into a room with a lot of people,
I'm not saying hi.
I'm not gonna say hi to everybody right off the bat, especially if I don't know you. That's not to be disrespectful. It's like, I'm an introvert. But I know some people will take that to heart and be like, oh, Joseph dapped this person, this, that, and the third up, but he didn't dap me up, so I guess he got an issue with me. And it's like, no, I wasn't thinking about you. But hi.
Just don't know y'all.
I think it's also like body language stuff that like kind of so it's like you kind of like we been kind of taught to make strong eye contact, like you shake somebody's hand, make sure you like, you know what I'm saying, or like even down like posture, you know what I'm saying, like it's like little things like that to where it's like I feel like it's exercising like something bigger, like even something small as like you walking down the street and you like make eye contact with somebody, you know what I'm saying, that's kind of exercising like, oh, I am confident.
A lot of those social skills should be taught. You know what I'm saying? And even past that, like interactions with women, like men should like actually be, I'm not trained necessarily, but should still like get like skills in terms of like how to do so you don't come off as like being overly aggressive or just don't act weird.
But see, so many groups of men don't have that mentorship to tell them, hey, you should talk to her, like, you should have said that or this. Like, we're lucky to have men in our lives who can kind of like, remind us to how to treat people. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of, especially because I work I mentor at Carver. So these are like little kids who don't really have really strong upholding like men to teach them certain things or to tell them certain things. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the stuff like you were saying it can be taught, and like they'll like the kids be walking past each other in the hallway and be like this, like you know what I'm saying, and like they don't know like the other kid, they just like what you looking at, like a lot of the stuff they take straight from the crib, like from their environment, and that's what I have a problem with. Like it's become so normalized that people as young as like first, second grade, man, their mannerisms and like the things that they do, like it's so sad. And they don't, like I said, they don't have men to, or if they do, it might just be in school. They don't have like a person at home or a man at home to tell, like really teach them how to treat, you know what I'm saying? Because all they're seeing is just like the media and rappers and, you know, people in entertainment, how they treat, you know, women, how they do certain stuff, or even like negative role models in their lives. And it's just like they don't really have positive.
I'm gonna try and interject for a second. Thank you. It's not just a man who can teach you that though, because I know the first thing I thought of is like a lot of young men are being raised by single mothers. I know for me personally, although I have both parents in my home, a lot of my mentors and a lot of my bosses just happen to be women. A lot of my friend group is women. They've taught me a lot of values. Yeah. I remember at one of my internships, I asked one of my mentors, who was a young woman, I was like, you know, why do you think more college students aren't in this field and more recent grads aren't in this field? And she was like, a lot of people, especially young students, have the education and people are looking for them, but they don't have the grooming. And so that goes back to being taught certain social skills that like, it can be young children, it can be a recent college grad who, if somebody, whether it's a man or a woman, didn't teach that for them and didn't take them in, then they just don't have that in their lives, and now they're expected, right? And so for me, what that looked like is I had to be groomed by a lot of women. That just was the way it naturally worked out, but I still am really thankful for the mentorship they provided me and the skills they provided me.
Like, do y'all think you need, as men, do you feel like you needed a man to teach you how to be a man? Or do you feel like, I feel like, because a lot of the things that we feel like we're talking about, like, they come off as just being a good person, you know what I mean? Like, if that makes sense. So do you feel like you need a man in your life?
Like, things that I was taught by my mom or my godmom, or I was raised with 3 older sisters as well, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I would say, but you kind of have to be open to learning from women too, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's why you touched on a really key point. And it, like, like when you said, like, the mentorship by men is needed by like kids. I do think that is true, but I think on our end it's just like being representation in the sense of like we're also being seen, allowed to be taught by women is a thing as well. Because in education is largely like populated by women in terms of like who's teaching like these young kids and things like that. So if we're seen like being taught by women and being receptive to those like lessons and things like that, then those same kids will do the same things that we're doing too.
I actually kind of agree and kind of don't, because there's more relatability. It plays a key role, but again, we should also be receptive to whatever improvement we can make. Just because my mom taught me about family base, she helped me grow my faith too as well. She was the one, she gave me this necklace right here. But she was the one that taught me about faith, took me to church because my dad is Muslim. So my mom took me to church, make me a family-based individual. So we should also be receptive, but also it's also more relatable if a dude actually talking to a boy too. So it's a 50-50 chance in a sense. 50-50, I agree with it. Yeah.
Like going off my personal life, I honestly don't feel like you need a man to really show you how to be a man, in a sense that, like me personally, like my pops didn't have his pops around, so he's figuring this shit out as he's going. So, but as far as my mom know what it's like to be like the minority in the world. Since she's a part of one of the most underrepresented populations, she can show me how to be an ally towards her and how to respect people who are also in these positions. So yeah, I honestly don't feel like you need a man. It would like a man will be beneficial, like, but I honestly don't feel like you need him. Like my mom raised me for the majority of my life. I had my dad, but my dad was like here in Richmond and I was in Norfolk, so yeah, he gave me advice and everything, but at the end of the day, it was what my mama said.